The First Battle of Heligoland Bight was the first naval battle of the First World War, fought on 28 August 1914, between the United Kingdom and Germany. The battle took place in the southeastern North Sea when the British attacked German patrols off the northwest German coast. The German High Seas Fleet remained largely in safe harbours on the North German coast, while the British Grand Fleet remained in the northern North Sea. Both sides engaged in long-distance sorties with cruisers and battlecruisers, and close reconnaissance of the area of sea near the German coast, the Heligoland Bight, by destroyer. The British devised a plan to ambush German destroyers on the daily patrols. A British fleet of 31 destroyers and 2 cruisers under Commodore Reginald Tyrwhitt and submarines commanded by Commodore Roger Keyes was dispatched. They were supported at longer range by an additional 6 light cruisers commanded by William Goodenough, and 5 battle cruisers commanded by Vice Admiral David Beatty. 3 German light cruisers and 1 destroyer were sunk. 3 more light cruisers were damaged, 712 sailors killed, 530 injured and 336 taken prisoner. The British suffered 1 light cruiser and 3 destroyers damaged, 35 killed and 40 wounded. The battle was regarded as a great victory in Britain, where the returning ships were met by cheering crowds. Publicly, Vice Admiral Beatty was regarded as a hero, although he had taken little part in the action or planning of the raid, which was led by Commodore Tyrwhitt and conceived by himself and Keyes, who had persuaded the Admiralty to adopt it. However, the raid might have led to disaster had the additional forces under Beatty not been sent by Admiral John Jellicoe at the last minute. The effect upon the German government, and in particular the Kaiser, was to restrict the freedom of action of the German fleet, instructing it to remain in port and avoid any contact with superior forces for several months thereafter. Prelude. The battle took place less than a month after Britain's declaration of war against Germany on 5 August 1914. Initially, the war on land went badly for the French and their allies, with German forces invading France and an urgent need to gather all possible troops to send to France to resist them. The British government was in a position of having nothing but bad news, and looked to the Navy, the largest in the world and traditionally the mainstay of British military power, for some success to report. British naval tactics had typically involved a close blockade of enemy ports, taking the fight to the enemy, and this had been the British plan for war against Germany up to 1913. Such an approach was still expected by the British population. However, it was realized that the advent of submarines armed with torpedoes and mines hidden in open sea meant that any operations involving stationing capital ships near enemy ports would place them at great risk of surprise attack and loss. Then, there was the issue of fuel for the ships. Traditional sail-powered ships did not need refueling, but powered ships, obliged to keep moving to reduce the vulnerability as sitting targets, were continuously using fuel and had to return to port every few days. The German fleet had expected that Britain would adopt its traditional approach, and had prepared by investing in submarines and coastal defences. The main body of the German Navy, the High Seas Fleet, was smaller than the British Grand Fleet stationed around home waters and could not expect victory in a head-to-head fight. It therefore adopted a strategy of waiting in defended home ports for opportunities to attack the larger British force when the anticipated attack came. The British, appreciating this situation, chose to adopt a strategy of patrolling the North Sea rather than waters close to Germany. Any German ships seeking to leave the home ports on the German coast must either pass the 20 miles wide Straits of Dover, defended by British submarines and mines, or the North Sea, where the British fleet was stationed around its main wartime base at Scapa Flow in Scotland. Heligoland, defending the 200 miles wide narrowest point between Britain and Norway. This led to a standoff, with neither fleet doing more than hold the other endlessly waiting. The German ships were contained in an area where they could not attack merchant shipping arriving on the west of Britain, which was vital for British survival. To encourage the German fleet to stay at home, the British would make occasional forays with the Grand Fleet and patrol with smaller cruiser and battlecruiser squadrons. The bulk of the British expeditionary force was transported to France between 12 and the 21st of August. This operation was protected from German attack by British destroyers and submarines patrolling Heligoland Bight, which German ships would have to cross when leaving the home ports. The Grand Fleet remained in the center of the North Sea, ready to move south should any German attack commence, but none came. Although the German army had anticipated a rapid transfer of the British army to aid France, German naval planning had anticipated it would take longer for the British to organize. Thus, they were caught by surprise when it commenced, with submarines which might have been ordered to attack the British transports away on patrols seeking the main British fleet. Plan of attack. Two British officers believed they had determined an opening to carry the war to the German fleet. Commodore Roger Keyes commanded a squadron of long-range submarines that regularly patrolled Heligoland Bight, while Commodore Reginald Tyrwhitt commanded a destroyer patrol, both operating from Harwich. They observed that German destroyers had adopted a regular pattern of patrols where each evening cruisers would escort out destroyers, which would patrol for British ships during the night before being met and escorted home each morning. Their idea was to send in a superior force during darkness to catch the German destroyers as they returned. 3 British submarines would surface in a position to draw the destroyers back out to sea, while a larger British force of 31 destroyers, accompanied by 9 submarines, would cut them off from Germany. Other submarines would wait for any larger German ships leaving the Jade estuary to help. Keyes impressed First Lord of the Admiralty Winston Churchill by the daring of his plan, which was adopted but not without changes. An attack at 8 o'clock on the German daytime patrol was preferred. Keyes and Tyrwhitt requested support for their operation, in particular bringing the Grand Fleet south and the support of the squadron of 6 light cruisers commanded by Commodore William Goodenough. This was refused by the Chief of Staff, Vice Admiral Doveton Sturdy, who instead agreed to place only lighter forces, Cruiser Force K, under Rear Admiral Gordon Moore, consisting of 2 battle cruisers HMS New Zealand and Invincible 40 miles to the northwest, and Cruiser Force C, a squadron of 5 Cressy-class armoured cruisers HMS Cressy, Abukir, Bacanti, Hogan Euryalus, 100 miles west. It was decided that the attack would take place on the 28th of August. The submarines were to leave to take up the positions on the 26th of August, while Keyes would travel on the destroyer Lurcher. The surface ships would depart at dawn on the 27th of August. Tyrwhitt, aboard the brand new light cruiser HMS Arethusa, would command the 3rd Flotilla of 16 modern L-class destroyers, whilst his subordinate, Captain William F. Blunt, aboard the light cruiser HMS Fearless, would command the 1st Flotilla of 16 older destroyers. Tyrwhitt had for some time been requesting replacement of his previous cruiser HMS Amethyst because she was too slow to keep up with his destroyers, but Arethusa did not arrive until the 26th of August. Her crew were inexperienced, and it was discovered that her new 4 MKV guns jammed when fired. Although the plan had been agreed by the Admiralty, Admiral John Jellicoe commanding the Grand Fleet was not informed until the 26th of August. Jellicoe immediately requested permission to send reinforcements to join the raid and to move the fleet closer to the action, but received permission only to send battle cruisers in support. he dispatched Vice Admiral David Beatty with the battlecruisers HMS Lion, Queen Mary and Princess Royal, and Goodenough with the 1st Light Cruiser Squadron, made up of the light cruisers HMS Southampton, Birmingham, Falmouth, Liverpool, Lowestoft and Nottingham. He then sailed south from Scapa Flow with the remainder of the fleet. Jellicoe dispatched a message advising Tyrwhitt that he should expect reinforcements, but this was delayed at Harwich and never received. Tyrwhitt did not discover the additional forces until Goodenough's ships appeared through the mist, leading to immediate concern whether they were friend or foe at a time when he was expecting to meet only enemy vessels. 8 British submarines were deployed. E-class submarines HMS E4, E5 and E9 were ordered to attack, reinforcing a retreating German vessels. HMS E6, E7 and E8 were positioned 4 miles further out to draw the German destroyers out to sea. HMS D2 and D8 were stationed off the River Ems to attack reinforcements should they come from that direction. Battle. At around 7 o'clock, Arethusa, steaming south towards the anticipated position of the German ships, sighted a German destroyer, G194. Accompanying Arethusa were the 16 destroyers of the 3rd Flotilla. 2 miles behind were Fearless with the 1st Flotilla of 16 destroyers, and 8 miles behind them Goodenough with his 6 cruisers. Visibility was no more than 3 miles. G194 immediately turned towards Heligoland, radioing Rear Admiral Lebrecht Maas, commander of the German destroyer squadron. Maas informed Rear Admiral Franz Hipper, who commanded the German battlecruiser squadron, and who was responsible for local defense. Hipper was unaware of the scale of the attack, but ordered the light cruisers SMS Stettin and Frauenlob to defend the destroyers. 6 other light cruisers were ordered to raise steam and join the defense as soon as they could. SMS Mainz moored on the River Ems, SMS Strasbourg, Köln, Ariadne, Stralsund and Kolberg from the River Jade, Danzig and München from Brunsbüttel on the River Elbe. Tyrwhitt ordered 4 destroyers to detach and attack G194. The sound of firing alerted the remaining German destroyers, who had been moving north, but turned south towards home. Before they could complete the turn, they were sighted by British destroyers who commenced firing. The trailing destroyer V1 was hit, followed by the destroyer minesweepers D8 and T-33. G9 called for fire against the attacking ships from coastal artillery, but the mist meant the artillery were unable to determine which ships were which. At 7:26, Tyrwhitt turned east, attempting to follow the sound of gunfire and his 4 destroyers. He sighted 10 German destroyers which he chased through increasing mist for 30 minutes until the ships reached Heligoland and he was forced to turn away. At 7:58, Stettin and Frauenlob arrived, reversing the situation so that the British destroyers were obliged to retreat toward their own cruisers Arethusa and Fearless. Stettin withdrew, since the German destroyers had now escaped, but Frauenlob was engaged by Arethusa. While Arethusa was theoretically the better armed ship, 2 of her 4 foreign guns were jammed, while another was damaged by fire. Frauenlob, armed with 10.5 cm guns, was able to cause considerable damage before a shell from one of Arethusa's 2 6-in guns destroyed her bridge, killing 37 men including the captain, and forcing her to withdraw. Although badly damaged, she returned to Wilhelmshaven. At 8:12, Tirett returned to the original plan, which was to sweep across the area from east to west. 6 returning German destroyers were sighted but turned to flee when one V-187 turned back. The German ship had seen 2 cruisers, Nottingham and Lowestoft, from Goodenough's squadron ahead of her and turned back in the hope of passing through the British destroyers by surprise. This was partially successful, but V-187 was surrounded by destroyers and sunk. As British ships attempted to rescue survivors from the water, the German light cruiser Stettin approached and opened fire, forcing the British to abandon the rescue, leaving behind British sailors. The British submarine E-4 had observed the action and launched a torpedo at Stettin, but missed. Stettin attempted to ram the submarine, which dived to escape. When she resurfaced, all the larger ships had gone, and the submarine rescued the British crewmen, still afloat in small boats together with German sailors. The Germans were left behind with a compass and direction toward the mainland as the submarine was too small to take them. Confusion of ships. At 8:15, Keyes with Lurcher and another destroyer sighted 2 4-funnelled cruisers. Still unaware that any additional British ships had been sent to support the action, he signalled Invincible that he was chasing 2 German cruisers. Goodenough received the signal and, abandoning his own search for enemy vessels to attack, steamed to assist Keyes against his own ships, Lowestoft and Nottingham. Keyes, seeing he was now being chased by 4 more enemy cruisers, attempted to lead them towards Invincible and New Zealand, reporting them as enemy ships. Eventually, Keyes recognized Southampton, and the ships attempted to rejoin Tirett. However, the danger to Goodenough's ships was not over, since the British submarines were still unaware the additional ships were present. At 9:30, one of the British submarines attacked Southampton with 2 torpedoes, missing and in turn escaping when Southampton tried to ram. Lowestoft and Nottingham remained out of communication range, and separated from the rest of the squadron, took no further part in the action. Tirett turned back to assist Keyes on receipt of the signal that he was being chased. He sighted Stettin, but lost her in the mist before coming upon Fearless and her destroyer squadron. Arethusa was badly damaged, so at 10:17 Fearless came alongside and both cruisers were stopped for 20 minutes while repairs were made to the boilers. Actions with German cruisers. By now, Cologne, Strasbourg and Ariadne had sailed from Wilhelmshaven to join the German defense, while Mainz was approaching from a different direction. Admiral Maas was still unaware of the nature of the attack, so spread his ships in search of the enemy. Strasbourg was first to find Arethusa and attacked with shells and torpedoes, but was driven off by torpedo attacks from the destroyers. As Tirett turned away to the west, Cologne, with Admiral Maas, approached from the southeast, and was also chased away by torpedoes. Tirett signalled Beatty requesting reinforcements, and Goodenough, with the 4 cruisers remaining with him, came to assist. The force turned west. Beatty had been following the events by radio 40 miles to the northwest. By 11:35, the British ships had still not completed the mission and withdrawn, and with the rising tide larger German ships would be able to leave harbour, and joined the engagement. He decided to intervene and took his 5 battle cruisers southeast at maximum speed, an hour away from the engagement. While the advantages of using his more powerful ships to rescue the others was clear, this had to be weighed against the possibility of mischance by torpedo or of meeting German dreadnoughts once the tide permitted them to sail, and losing one or more of the important battle cruisers. At At 11:30, Tirret's squadron came upon another German cruiser, Mainz, and the ships engaged for 20 minutes, before the arrival of Goodenough caused Mainz to attempt an escape. Goodenough gave chase, and in trying to lose him, Mainz came back across the path of Arethusa and her destroyers. Her steering was damaged, causing her to turn back into the path of Goodenough's ships, and she was hit by shells and torpedo. At 12:20, her captain ordered his ship to be scuttled and the crew to abandon ship. Keyes had now joined the main body of ships and brought Lurcher alongside Mainz to take off the crew. 3 British destroyers had been seriously damaged in the engagement. Strasbourg and Cologne now attacked together, but the battle was interrupted by the further arrival of Beatty and the battlecruisers. An officer on one of the destroyers wrote, "The strait ahead of us in lovely procession, like elephants walking through pack of dogs, came Lion, Queen Mary, Princess Royal, Invincible, and New Zealand. How solid they looked, how utterly earthquaking. We pointed out our latest aggressor to them, and we went west while they went east, and just a little later we heard the thunder of the guns." Battlecruisers Strasbourg managed to disengage and escape when the battlecruisers approached, but Cologne was not so fortunate. Cut off from escape, she was quickly disabled by the much larger guns of the battlecruisers. She was saved from immediate sinking by the sighting of another German light cruiser, Ariadne, to which Beatty gave chase and again quickly overcame. Ariadne was left to sink, which she eventually did at 1500, attended by the German ships Danzig and Stralsund, who took off survivors. At 1310, Beatty turned northwest and ordered all the British ships to withdraw. Since the tide had now risen sufficiently for larger German ships to pass out through the Jade estuary, passing Cologne again, he opened fire, sinking her. Attempts to rescue the crew were interrupted by the arrival of a submarine. One survivor was rescued by a German ship 2 days later out of some 250 who had survived the sinking. Rear Admiral Maas perished with his ship. 4 German cruisers survived the engagement, which they would not have done except for the mist. Strasbourg nearly approached the battlecruisers but saw them in time and turned away. She had 4 funnels, like the British Town-class cruisers, which caused sufficient confusion to allow her time to disappear into the mist. The German battlecruisers Moltke and von der Tann left the Jade at 1410 and began a cautious search for other ships. Rear Admiral Hipper arrived with Seydlitz at 1510, but by then the battle was over.